In this installment, we're going to be breaking down Week 7's top stacks and values. Let's get into it. The first stack we're going to start off with will be the Kansas City Chiefs going up against the San Francisco 49ers at that QB position. We're going to be looking at Patrick Mahomes. It doesn't matter what defense he's going up against. Matter of fact, this is still a good matchup because San Francisco is seeing a ton of injuries in that secondary, okay? Their defense has been decimated, and that is the reason why they lost to the Atlanta Falcons last week. Now, they're going to see a high-powered, efficient, and angry Patrick Mahomes coming off a loss against the Buffalo Bills. Things are not looking great for the San Francisco 49ers. This should be a high-scoring affair. Patrick Mahomes in a great position and with a myriad of assets to throw to. All right, we got Juju popping up. We still got Kelsey. We got Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Mecole Hardman, and even Sky Moore is getting more and more usage each and every week. All right, so I love Patrick Mahomes at 7,800. Garoppolo, he has some upside to get to 20 fantasy points, but that's pretty much his ceiling. He hasn't even got there at all this whole entire season, even in games where he needs to throw more. Okay, it would take Jimmy Garoppolo to throw over 300 and get 2 to 3 touchdowns, and not to get any interception. So Jimmy Garoppolo, it takes a lot for him to get there. I would stay away. There's definitely other avenues at that quarterback position. All right. For the running back position, we have the question about Christian McCaffrey, all right? McCaffrey going to the San Francisco 49ers. He will be playing in this game, but he is going to see limited work, mainly red zone packages. So you would need Christian McCaffrey to get multiple touchdowns for him to pay off his salary, all right? We're talking about a top-tier running back here. You're paying over $8,000 in salary. You need 25-plus fantasy points. He would literally need like 4 touchdowns. So I highly doubt he's going to get 4 touchdowns in limited snaps and only red zone snaps. He's not going to get a touchdown every time he touches the ball. Okay, and if that happens, then that'd be the most craziest thing ever. So Christian McCaffrey, definitely stay away from him. It's a question mark if he's going to play at all. But Kyle Shanahan said he was going to draw red zone packages for Christian McCaffrey. So in limited work, in only red zone situations, you'll see Christian McCaffrey. And if, say, he doesn't get in the first 2 times, they are going to go to Jeff Wilson. All right. It's just not a situation where you need usage. All right. We need 20-plus touches. As you can see in each of one of his games, he's getting over 20-plus touches. That's what we need. Okay. From Christian McCaffrey if we're going to play him at $8,000 plus salary. All right, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you want to stay away from this backfield in Kansas City. It's a 3-headed monster between CEH, Isaiah Pacheco, and Jerick McKinnon. You do not know which one is going to go off. That early season variance where he was getting touchdowns has cooled off, as you can see, because they're acclimating Jerick McKinnon and Jerick McKinnon and Isaiah Pacheco more in the offense. So I'm staying away from CEH, staying away from Pacheco, and staying away from Jerick McKinnon because you do not know which one. All right, one running back we can go to who's going to get the bulk of the carries in the game will be Jeff Wilson. All right, so we can definitely go to Jeff Wilson in this game. Like I said, he's going to be splitting a little bit of time with Christian McCaffrey in red zone situations. Jeff Wilson still is going to receive the bulk of the work. All right, so I like him at 5,800 if you want to consider him a stack. A lot of people are going to be away from him because of the Christian McCaffrey scenario, but this is going to be his last time before McCaffrey comes to number 1 back and before Elijah Mitchell comes back as well. Let's look over to the wide receivers. We got Debo and Brandon Ayuk in great situations. All right, Debo, 10 targets last week, 79 yards, 7 receptions, even saw 2 rushing attempts for 16 fantasy points. He's in another great position going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a game where this team is ranked poorly in pass defense, and this is a game where they're going to need to keep up pace with a very high-powered offense. So I like Debo at 7,600, and I can definitely go to Brandon Ayuk as well. $6,000 in salary. Had a big breakout game last week against Atlanta. We're hoping that he has another solid game in this one as well. The game environment equals to that, and at a nice salary of $6,000, they raise him up just a little bit. I'm thinking we can get double-digit fantasy points yet again going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, Brandon Ayuk, I love, and that's how far I would go on the San Francisco 49ers side. On the Kansas City Chiefs side, Juju Smith-Schuster finally broke out. This is the guy that's getting the majority of the snaps. With Patrick Mahomes, he's running all the routes with Patrick Mahomes on dropbacks as well. This is the number one wide receiver in usage on the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, obviously the number one receiver on the team is Travis Kelce, who we'll get to very, very soon. But Juju Smith-Schuster finally got some progression. All right, it was a lot of struggles in the beginning of the season. Week 6, he popped up and finally got his touchdown that he much deserved. He's getting nearly 8 targets each and every game in one of the most highest passing offenses in the league. So it was only going to turn around, and it finally did. So things should be wheels up. We should feel confident to play him each and every week because he's going to get the usage, all right? The question is he going to get the touchdown, all right? If we're talking about a receiver getting 8 targets each and every game from Patrick Mahomes, you're going to play him, all right? So I like Juju Smith-Schuster right there. We can go to Marquez Valdes-Scantling as well. Poor performance from him. 0 receptions, 3 targets. Buffalo Bills was a tough matchup. They're going to play that zone coverage. They're going to make sure they don't get beat deep, and that's the reason why he had such a bad game. San Francisco, that can definitely turn around in this particular game because of the injuries that they are seeing in that secondary. This could be the big breakout game for Marquez Valdes-Scantling at 4,400. It was Juju last week. It could be MBS this week, all right? Another guy we can look at if you want to get a little bit cheaper at the wide receiver position would be Mecole Hardman, all right? He's had not back-to-back games. He's had a game with a touchdown in week 6, and he also came through with a touchdown in week 1, all right? So maybe there's a little something there brewing in that red zone where they see Mecole Hardman. Patrick Mahomes and Hardman have been getting acclimated a little bit more. His average ADOT is deeper down the field, as you can see the past 2 weeks, 14 yards per catch, and in week 5, 18 yards per catch there. So that was definitely a positive to see. Back-to-back double-digit fantasy point game. So Mecole Hardman is kind of that guy, that third guy in the back that is still popping off for solid production. All right. So Mecole Hardman, Juju Smith-Schuster, MVS are solid options. And then we got the main guy here, Travis Kelce. All right. This is the target leader here on this offense. And he continues to break records. We had 4 touchdowns against the Raiders. And we had a nice game of 108 against the Buffalo Bills. Travis Kelce is a smash play this week going up against the 49ers. So I love Kelce there. On the other side, at the tight end position, you can go with Kittle. He had 10 targets. That was a season high from him. 8 receptions, 10 targets, 83 yards. Definitely impressive performance. Still has not gotten in the end zone. That can definitely change in this game against the Kansas City Chiefs. It's going to be a game environment that they're going to need to lean on their explosive players. Kittle is definitely one of them. At 5,300, I can definitely pay down at the tight end spot and get a top-tier talent in George Kittle. No problem there, right? So that's going to be the first stack, Kansas City Chiefs, San Francisco 49ers. Let's move on to the next one. The next stack we're going to go to will be the Atlanta Falcons going up against the Cincinnati Bengals. I think this is going to be a very nice high-scoring game in Cincinnati, nice and sunny in Ohio. So the guys we're going to look at first, QB position, Joe Burrow is in a prime position to have another breakout game. All right, we had a beginning of the season struggles with Joe Burrow. In week 2, 16 fantasy points. Week 5, 18 fantasy points. But I think things are going to go take it to the next level in this one. They're moving to more of a shotgun formation for the Cincinnati Bengals, similar to what they did at that end stretch run of last year as they made their run to the Super Bowl. So 6,900 Joe Burrow is a smash play. If we're looking at QB fantasy points allowed, the Atlanta Falcons are 24th overall, and they're allowing a rank of 30th in the red zone. So that's absolutely horrible. Giving up 291 passing yards, 1.7 touchdowns per game. So that is a great spot for Joe Burrow. If you want to save salary and go with Marcus Mariota, he has huge upside as well with his legs, all right? So he's not seeing a high volume in throws, as you can see, 13 or 14. Super efficient in the pass game, had 2 touchdowns. Also chipped in with 6 rushing attempts, 50 yards, and a TD. Gave you 24 fantasy points in that game. This is someone I was like similar. If we're talking about Garoppolo, Marcus Mariota is the same price, and he provides upside in a game environment where he's going to have to keep up pace with the Cincinnati Bengals. I think they're going to be clicking on all cylinders. They have up-tempoed their offense. They're running from the shotgun. And the poor rushing defense from Atlanta is going to be another scenario where they're going to have to keep up pace with the Bengals. So Marcus Mariota could be a solid, cheaper option at the quarterback position. Next, we're going to look at the running back position here. And we're going to look at fantasy points allowed to running backs. And we're going to flip that around and go to the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta Falcons are all the way down here. 12th overall, allowing 88 yards per game to the running back position, 4.5 yards a carry. But things are just more efficient now when they're running this offense from the shotgun. Joe Mixon had a solid game last week. Got in the end zone in the receiving game. Still, we're looking for a big breakout game from him. And this could be the game environment, right? Playing up $7,000 in salary, have no problem in that. I'm seeing better usage from him. He was more efficient the past 2 weeks. As you can see, week 5, 5.6 yards a carry, and week 6, 5.6 yards a carry. That's what you want to see from him. Before, there was a lot of inefficiency between week 1 and week 4, where he was only getting around 3 yards a carry. If he's popping off 5 yards a carry, things are open up more. Running lanes will open up more, and they can definitely have the defense on their back heels, all right? And we're getting nice usage from the receiving game as well from Joe Mixon. Love him at his price at $7,000. We want to stay away from the backfield of Atlanta, even though they are pretty efficient. But the problem is they have a committee, all right? They got Tyler Algier, they got Caleb Huntley, and they have Avery Williams, who they're giving some touches to as well. So we're going to stay away from the running backs on the Atlanta side. And then at the wide receivers, Ja'Marr Chase finally back in Louisiana at a big breakout game. All right, 7 for 10 for 132 and 2 touchdowns. I can definitely see another big game coming from Ja'Marr Chase in this one. And this is their worst. This is their biggest weakness for the Atlanta Falcons. Okay, fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. Atlanta Falcons are 27th and 32nd, dead last in the red zone. So this is a perfect opportunity for T. Higgins, for Ja'Marr Chase, for Tyler Boyd to get in the end zone. All these guys are going to be viable. 8,200. You can go to T. Higgins at 6,400. He's looking like he's getting more healthier and healthier after that 0 fantasy points against Baltimore. Came back against the Saints, 6 reception, 47 yards. Definitely was glad to see him play a full game, and he's been practicing fully now. So T. Higgins is in a good spot as well. And then the third option in Tyler Boyd, just Mr. Consistent here. All right, he's going to get you something, all right? Last week we saw 6 receptions, 66 yards. Didn't get in the end zone. He hasn't gotten in the end zone since week 3. He needs to break off one, but Tyler Boyd is in a very solid situation here at 5,300. All right, let's look at the other wide receivers on the other side. Remember, they're not going to throw at a high volume, so it's pretty much between Drake London and Olamide Zaccheaus here. If I had to choose one, we're going to go with the rookie, Drake London. He's going to have to be efficient in the limited passing attempts that they're going to receive for this Atlanta Falcons offense. We have 3 straight games in a row of under double-digit fantasy points, but if Cincinnati's putting up a big number, they're going to force Mariota to throw the ball. That means Drake London. And that also could go to Olamide Zaccheaus. He's someone that in the red zone that Marcus Mariota has looked to. He's been pretty decent this whole season at around that $4,000 in salary. We had double-digit fantasy points in week 2. We had double-digit fantasy points in week 5. So Olamide Zaccheaus, if you want a punt play at 4K in this game stack, you could definitely go towards him as well. Let's move over to the tight ends. And this is a big weakness on both sides. All right. So Atlanta is very poor against tight ends. Hayden Hurst struggled last week. Took a little bit of a backseat for the top tier wide receivers in this offense. Maybe he gets things cooking yet again in this one, because if we're looking at fantasy points allowed to tight ends, the Atlanta Falcons are one of the worst in the league. As you can see, 29th in the league and 20th in the red zone. All right. So that's going to be a positive game script for him. And if we're looking on the other side, Kyle Pitts, all right, finally got a touchdown last week. Can he go back to back? All right. This is going to be key to see in these situations. I know they're opening things up for each other between Kyle Pitts and Drake London. Can Kyle Pitts put another okay, decent game together in this one? Hoping that the game environment leads to more passing attempts, and Kyle Pitts at 4,300 is someone that has top tier ability and talent and is at a very, very cheap price. So this is why I definitely love this Atlanta and Cincinnati game. More heavily leaning on the Cincinnati side. All right, let's move on to the next stack. The next game stack we're going to look at will be this Detroit Lions versus Dallas game stack here. Game total of around 49 points. So you want to attack these game environments with 46 points and above. And this is one of them here. We know the Detroit Lions defense has been absolutely putrid this whole entire year. And now they're coming into a spot where they get Dak Prescott back. And this is the perfect game for him to get acclimated back in the offense. Maybe some people are going to shy away from this since it's Dak Prescott's first game, but this is the worst defense in the league. And I think this is a game scenario where he can take off and get things running. And we're going to see a more efficient Dallas Cowboys offense. So Dak Prescott at 6,700 against the worst defense is an absolute like. If we're going to the other side in Jared Goff, he's going to be going up against a tougher defense here in the Dallas Cowboys defense. He's going to put up solid volume here. We're hoping he can get in the end zone. He's going to have Amon-Ra St. Brown back. He's going to have DeAndre Swift back as well. So Detroit Lions offensively are going to be fully healthy. Defensively is going to be the question. So if you wanted to get creative and go for a cheaper quarterback at 5,800, I think we should stick to the top tier guys with Dak, Patrick Mahomes, and Joe Burrow. I don't think we should get cute with Jared Goff in this particular one, especially if I don't see the Lions winning the game as well. So we can move over to the running back position. We got Swift in the Q tag here. He's going to be splitting carries with Jamal Williams, so he has to continue his high efficiency, which is it's pretty much a toss-up, but we love the receiving ability. We're going to see how he's utilized and how much he's utilized in his first game back. So you might want to have a wait-and-see approach for DeAndre Swift in his first game back and then attack him in Week 8. So we can probably stay away from him. But we have Ezekiel Elliott here in a game against the Detroit Lions, and they are very poor against the running back position. If we're looking at fantasy points allowed to the running back position, we are looking at these Detroit Lions, and they are poor against the running backs. As you can see, 31st fantasy point per game rank. As you can see, 31st and 30th in the red zone, allowing 127 yards, 5.5 yards a carry. This is only going to equal good things for this Dallas Cowboys offense. Hit them with the run, open things up, and that's going to just equal fantasy points to CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup. So Ezekiel Elliott is in his possibly could be his huge game of the year here against Detroit Lions. He saw a touchdown last week against Philadelphia, who's a top tier rush defense. Now he gets a cupcake matchup. I like what I'm going to see out of Ezekiel Elliott in this game. He's not going to get much in the receiving department. That's more towards Tony Pollard. But if we're just talking just rushing here, Ezekiel Elliott at 6,000 is an absolute smash. If you want to get a little more creative, you can go to Tony Pollard. He's going to get some carries and catches as well. Has some solid performances so far this year. 14 fantasy points against the Rams, 13 against the Giants, 19 against the Cincinnati Bengals. So both of these guys have upside. I want to lean on more of Ezekiel Elliott because he's going to get more usage. All right. Wide receiver wise, I like both sides of the ball here. CeeDee Lamb at 6,800. We thought he was going to falter under Cooper Rush, but that has not been a problem. He's been pretty solid. We have 4 straight double-digit fantasy points games from CeeDee Lamb with Cooper Rush as the QB. And now he gets his number one QB back in Dak Prescott. I think he's going to get the same volume, right, as we've been seeing as of late. Will he get in the end zone? That's when he can definitely have a big breakout game. Still 6,800, so under 7K. That is high upside here. Give me CeeDee Lamb in this game. And on the other side, we got Michael Gallup, the number 2 wide receiver. He's getting back and healthy. He's going to be very, very explosive. And I like him at $5,000, 100 if we want to save a little bit of salary and to get a wide receiver in this big high scoring game environment. All right, if we want to bring it back on the other side, Amon-Ra St. Brown, hopefully he's fully healthy. We saw him go off in the first 2 weeks, get a little bit hampered in week 3. That's why he missed week 4, and then he didn't get much usage in week 5. So after the bye, we're hoping for Amon-Ra St. Brown to be fully healthy after his little ankle injury. And at 7,100, he's going to be a guy we're going to look at, all right? Even though Trevon Diggs is going to be on him, all right? So Amon-Ra St. Brown, if we're going with a number 2 wide receiver, you got to wait on news for Josh Reynolds here. He's been the guy that's taken over since Amon-Ra has been out, and he's put up solid production. Week 5, 15 fantasy points. Week 4, 21. Week 3, 15. So even with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Josh Reynolds has become a nice number 2 wide receiver in this offense. So I have no problem going with him as well. Let's move over to the tight ends. Dalton Schultz, we want to stay away from. That knee is highly questionable right now. He's not even getting usage or snaps, so we want to stay away from him. If you had to choose a tight end from the Dallas side, it's been Jake Ferguson. But he's been splitting snaps with Hendershot. So we want to stay away from all 3 Dallas Cowboys tight ends. And if we had to choose one, Hockenson is back, but he's clearly has big splits when Amon-Ra St. Brown is in and when DeAndre Swift is in. All right, so we want to stay away from all tight ends. I do not like the tight ends in this particular game. We're going to stick with the running backs. Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard. We're going to stick with the wide receivers on both sides for Detroit and Dallas. All right, so let's move over to the next stat. The next stat we got will be the Houston Texans going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. This one's going to be one of the more sneakier ones. If we're looking at the team total in this game, between Houston and Las Vegas, it is 46, so it meets the criteria, and it has some potential here. We got Derek Carr going up against Houston's defense. Mainly Houston's pass defense is mediocre. The real problem here is their rush defense. So if things are opening up with Josh Jacobs, who I definitely love in this game, that can open up things with Derek Carr. And Derek Carr has Devonta Adams to throw to. He has Hunter Renfrow. I think he can have a bounce-back performance, what he had against Kansas City Chiefs, where he did have 2 touchdowns, but he kind of struggled in that game. We were hoping to see more of a pass-happier attack from the Las Vegas Raiders in that game, where they put up 59 points. So we were expecting a huge game from him. If you see them scoring 29 points, he only had 17 fantasy points. So in this matchup where there's going to be easier lanes for Josh Jacobs, they're going to get in the end zone more frequently. Derek Carr has the opportunity to throw some more touchdowns. So at 5,900, at that $5,000 range, he might be my favorite quarterback to get. So definitely like Derek Carr in this game matchup. If you wanted to get even cheaper, Davis Mills is at 5,000, and this is a premier matchup for him. If we're looking at fantasy points allowed to QBs for the Las Vegas Raiders defense, they are currently ranked 32nd and 32nd, okay? So 32nd in red zone and 32nd for fantasy points allowed to quarterback. So this is a perfect matchup for him, and that means we're going to go towards his wide receivers as well. And he has 2 solid wide receivers to throw to. All right, Davis Mills just has to get away from these turnovers, which has been killing him in the fantasy points department. So Davis Mills, if you get away from the turnovers and throw at a very high clip, we can see a nice performance from him at that $5,000 in salary. All right, Josh Jacobs, love him. I love both running backs in this game. Jacobs is we thought it was going to be bad for him in this situation. That was a smokescreen. All right, he's played phenomenal. As you can see, the last past 2 weeks, 37 fantasy points and 33 fantasy points. Now he gets an even easier matchup against the Houston Texans here. Fantasy points allowed. The Texans are one of the bottom in the league. I'm going to flip that around here. As you can see, the Houston Texans are dead last, 32nd and 31st, allowing 5 yards to carry, a touchdown a game, and 133 yards rushing in a game. And as the clear-cut number one running back, getting a ton of uses, as you can see, 28 attempts, 5 to 6 targets a game. Man, Josh Jacobs is a smash play at 6,500. The next running back we're going to look at is Dameon Pierce. This man is a bulldozer. Big breakout running back. Rookie running back here in Dameon Pierce. 3 games in a row with a touchdown. I can definitely see him getting the end zone in this game against the Raiders, who are in the middle of the pack at stopping the run as well. But they give up more of the receiving yards. So this is a great situation for the whole entire Houston Texans offense. So I have no problem going to Dameon Pierce. At the wide receiver position, we have Davante Adams, right? Big game last week. Only 3 catches, but he made the most of it. Still got you 30 fantasy points. Okay, so it doesn't really matter which scenario or game situation he's in. This man is a game breaker each and every time he's on that field. And we saw 2 deep bombs to Davante Adams last week. Came through with 30 fantasy points. I have no problem going back to the well in this game. There's no one that can guard Davante Adams in the league. As we saw, it was so easy for them to connect. All right. Other avenues at the wide receiver position, we got Brandon Cooks. All right, this is the target leader for this offense. A couple poor performances throughout the year. Only 6 fantasy points against the Jacksonville Jaguars, only 4.2 against the Bears, and only 9.4 against Chicago. But there's upside here: 18 against the Chargers and 15 against the Indianapolis Colts. I see a game scenario where this is a poor pass defense and Brandon Cooks can definitely get you double-digit fantasy points. The question is, will he get in the end zone? All right, so that has a high probability to happen this week if we're looking at fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. The Las Vegas Raiders are bottom in the league here. As you can see, they are 22nd overall and 25th in the red zone. So this is a good game for Brandon Cooks to possibly go off. And if we want to go a little bit cheaper, Nico Collins. All right, this is their big body wide receiver for the Houston Texans. A little bit longer down the field in target and ADOT, as you can see, 16, 27, 20 in his average receptions. And he's been putting back-to-back games with double-digit fantasy points. The big breakout game is coming for Nico Collins. All right, I cannot wait for him to explode. And he had a very solid preseason. Things just need to roll over into the regular season. He was coming on at the end of last year. If you guys remember, Nico Collins is going to solidify himself as the number 2 wide receiver in this offense. So I love him at 4,200. If we're looking at another wide receiver other than Davante Adams, you want to save some salary. Matt Collins at 4,600 has been more of the consistent, but Hunter Renfrow is the true number 2 and working in the slot, especially with no Darren Waller in this game. Derek Carr has a very nice connection with Hunter Renfrow. He can get open at will, and we can see the targets from week 2 where he had 7 to 10. Got a little bit injured. Now he's fully back. Was happy to see him against the Kansas City Chiefs. I think things get cooking to what we usually see from Hunter Renfrow, around that 6 to 7 to 8 target range. Him working in the slot and being definitely someone to look at in the red zone as well, okay? Because he has similar moves to Cooper Kupp in that red zone area to get open. So Hunter Renfrow at 4,900 is a love. And like I said, no Darren Waller. If we're looking at tight ends, that means Foster Moreau becomes the number 1 tight end. This is going to be one of my top tier punt plays to go for, would be Foster Moreau, all right? Every time we get no Darren Waller, Foster Moreau has upside. In previous weeks, week 2, he had 6 fantasy points and 3 fantasy points. So someone with upside, definitely explosive type of tight end. It's unfortunate that they have Darren Waller, but Foster Moreau, if he got starting work, would be a stud. Okay, so I like him at 2,800 in salary. We're going to stay away from the tight ends on the Texan side, and that's going to be the stack for Houston against the Raiders. Let's move on to the next. Next up, we have the Cleveland Browns going up against the Baltimore Ravens. And this over-under for this game, we got 46, so they meet the criteria yet again, right on that cusp. But this is an in-division matchup here, AFC North battle. Lamar Jackson has huge upside, always. Had a poor game against the Giants. Giants have a very solid defense. He lost 2 fumbles in that one and threw 4 interception. Played poorly in that fourth quarter. We need Lamar Jackson to get things going, similar to what we saw at the beginning of the season. He has struggled against Buffalo, Cincinnati, and the Giants. Cleveland is going to be an easier matchup, all right? I expect a 25-plus breakout game from Lamar Jackson in this one, providing high usage passing and in the rushing department here. So 8,000 is going to be one of my top tier favorite plays at the QB. I'm not going to look at Jacoby Brissett in this matchup. Just because there's other guys to go to, especially at the 5,300 range, or 5,000 range, period. I'd rather go to Mariota. I'd rather go to Derek Carr. I'd rather even play Davis Mills than Jacoby Brissett. But this is still a game environment on both sides that I want to mesh together, all right? Nick Chubb, it's all about game script, okay? So if Baltimore gets up big, they're going to lean away from Nick Chubb. All right, so let's see. Matter of fact, let's see what Nick Chubb average. Okay, I'm gonna see Nick Chubb, DKP by game log versus Ravens last 5 games. All right, we're gonna see how productive he's been. All right, and he hasn't. So this is what I figured. We want to stay away from Nick Chubb in this game. He only has 1 game in the last 5 for him to even reach double-digit fantasy points. Other than that, it's been 4.5, 6.6, 5.9, and 9.5. So this is going to be more of a Kareem Hunt game. So we're going to stay away from $8,000 Nick Chubb. Definitely avoid that landmine. And we're going to go with Kareem Hunt at 5,400, all right? Kareem Hunt last week saw limited usage. But if they're down, they're going to need their pass catching back, and that's going to be Kareem Hunt. I expect him to bounce back in this game, okay, against the Baltimore Ravens. So if I had a cheaper option at running back, I would lean more towards Kareem Hunt if we're doing a game stack. All right. On the other side of the ball, Kenyon Drake is a absolute love here. As the number 1 running back in this rushing offense here, we saw a big performance against the Giants defense, which is pretty stout. He had 10 for 119 for a touchdown. Also chipped in with 1 reception. We got 22 fantasy points from Kenyon Drake. He still has juice. He's still popping off big runs. He had a 30-yard run against the Giants last week. So at 5,100, he's going to be highly owned because of his price. But the environment is great for him and in an offense that's going to run the ball at a very high clip. All right. Pass catchers. All right, we have a poor Baltimore Ravens secondary, and Amari Cooper has been super efficient this year. I wish I attacked him more in fantasy drafts. He's only had 2 bad games. Other than that, he's putting over double-digit fantasy points. 28 against the Jets, 26 against Pittsburgh, 20 against the Chargers, and 14.4 and a touchdown against New England Patriots. So 6,100. Do not shy away from Amari Cooper. He's one of the top tier targets in this offense. There's a second one, but we'll get to that position very soon. All right. We're gonna wait on news for Rashad Bateman, currently questionable. If he is in, then we can go back to the well. He's not gonna see a high volume, but he's gonna be very explosive. He has 2 bad games and 2 great games. So Rashad Bateman, wait and see on his injury designation. If he's playing, then we can go him toward in this stack and pair him with Lamar Jackson. But the main guy we're going to stack with will be obviously Mark Andrews. So Rashad Bateman is alike. If Rashad Bateman is back, that is a downgrade to Devin Duvernay, who's been seeing higher usage, and they're trying to be very creative to get Devin Duvernay the ball. But he had a poor performance against the Giants. That is something we factored in because the Giants defense has been top tier this league. That's the reason why they are currently 5-1. So we want to stay away from Devin Duvernay if Rashad Bateman is in. Donovan Peoples-Jones is someone to look at. He's been seeing solid production week after week since week 4. We've seen more consistency from DPJ. 5 for 71, 4 for 50, and 4 for 74. Has not got in the end zone yet, but that big breakout game is definitely coming from him. Other than that, I don't want to go too deep at the wide receiver positions. We're going to go look at the tight ends. I think we can go with both of these guys. Mark Andrews is currently questionable. He had a rest day practice-wise. We want to make sure he's fine for this game. He had a limited on Friday, so that's going to be fine. So we can definitely go back to well with Mark Andrews. This is going to be the main pair. Lamar Jackson, Kenyon Drake, Mark Andrews. Definitely want to focus on them three in this lineup build. And obviously, do not forget about David Njoku. All right, this man has been a top 10 tight end so far this year. Definitely a steal late in drafts. Best comparable to Travis Kelce. And we've seen the fact that he got a pay raise, got the big bag, and he's getting high usage in this offense, as you can see. And he's popping off big receptions. 33 in week 6, 38 in week 5, 25 in week 4. Needs to get in the end zone for him to have a huge day, but he has that upside, okay? These tight ends that have been consistent, Zach Ertz, Kelce, or Andrews, all these guys are must-haves in your lineups, all right? Especially at 4,200. This man can provide a 20-point fantasy game, which he did already against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're using David Njoku the correct way in this offense. So I like him at 4,200, all right? So that's going to be the stack for the Cleveland Browns and the Baltimore Ravens game. Last but not least, I think we saved the best for last with this Seattle Seahawks game going up against the Los Angeles Chargers. Starting at the QB position, we got a tough matchup here between Justin Herbert or Geno Smith. So here, I think Justin Herbert gets back on track. Poor performance the past 2 weeks against Denver, against Cleveland, despite the fact that in that Cleveland game, they put up 30 fantasy points. That was more of Austin Eckler. We've yet to see the big Justin Herbert game. And it's coming. It's coming. Just be very patient. That 30-plus fantasy point game from Justin Herbert that we saw last year will come, and this could be the game here. 7,200 for him. I love him at his salary. I love him in a bounce-back performance. Geno Smith, solid as well. This Chargers defense has been very poor this year. And it's been more of the running game that they've been leaning on. Austin Eckler has looked outstanding this year for 2 years in a row. Geno Smith can be viable at 5,600. Yet another example of a quarterback in that $5,000 range that I'd rather have. He's already put up big performance against the Saints, against Detroit, and against Atlanta with over 20 fantasy points from Geno Smith. So he's looking pretty legit in this offense. And things are only going to get better with Kenneth Walker. The way he's running as well, he's going to help out the offense as a whole. All right, moving over to the running back position, 8,300 in Austin Eckler. How could you fade him? As you can see, back-to-back games of over 30 fantasy points, and then against Denver, 24.3. He's seeing a high volume in the receiving department. That's mainly because Keenan Allen has been out. Justin Herbert is being dumping the ball off more to Austin Eckler. He's getting a percentage usage bump, and so is Mike Williams. So we're going to wait on news about Keenan Allen. He's going to be a big factor if he's in or out. That affects Austin Eckler in his receptions as well. But he's going to be highly used in the red zone department. I have no problem going with him, especially if I think Josh Kelly is going to be out yet again. They're going to lean on Austin Eckler a little bit more. Sony Michel will get a few carries here and there, but he is not as efficient as a Joshua Kelly, and definitely not as efficient as the Austin Eckler. So I like him at 8,300. And on the other side, we have Kenneth Walker. This man is next level at the running back position. So he was one of the guys that you needed to grab in the fantasy, well, not in the fantasy, in the actual draft at the running back position. Him, Breece Hall, Dameon Pierce, all these guys are taking the next step up. And Kenneth Walker is taking advantage of his opportunity to be the number one running back. We saw 19 fantasy points from him, 97 yards and a TD. Creativity, patience, has the vision as a running back. Kenneth Walker is definitely someone we can look at. $5,800 in salary. All right, at the wide receiver position, we're gonna obviously go back to the well. Mike Williams. You have to accept the the volatility of Mike Williams, okay? He's either going to have a poor game, as you can see, 3.7, 8.5, or he's going to go absolutely off, where we see 26, 22, and 28. You gotta be okay with the variance, all right? You got to understand that he's a boom bust guy, but when he's a boom guy, it's usually for a big game. And I like him and Justin Herbert to get back acclimated and get things cooking in this game against Seattle. We're going to wait on news about Keenan Allen, but if he does play, it might be on a limited fashion. They even talked about having him play this week and then sitting him the week after. So that's not a good sign. You might as well just wait until a couple more weeks until he's fully healthy. So definitely wait on news about Keenan Allen. I would definitely just go back to the well to Mike Williams. He's a safer bet. Joshua Palmer is going to be out in this game. That's going to lead more of a passing role to DeAndre Carter, who's been working in the slot. He might get a couple more dump-off passes, more screen opportunities for DeAndre Carter at 3,700. He could be a punt play. And on the other side of the ball for Seattle, we got DK Metcalf and we got Tyler Lockett. The favorite out of the two have been Tyler Lockett, but DK Metcalf always has the ability to go off. And that's $6,600 in salary. He's someone to look at. Still getting a solid amount of targets, 7, 8, 10, and 12 the last 4 weeks. We really need him to get in the end zone for him to pay off his salary, because the main guy in this offense has been Tyler Lockett at this wide receiver position. Currently questionable. He's going to be fine to play, just looking at the reports and the update here. But we've been seeing solid usage and a nice connection between him and Geno Smith. 30 fantasy points in week 5, 14 in week 4, 16 in week 3, 22 in week 2, and a poor performance against Denver. But if I had to lean to one or the other, I would lean to Tyler Lockett because of the usage. We saw back-to-back games of over double-digit fantasy targets from them as well. And he's going to be back and healthy for this game. But I definitely like both guys in this game that's going to have over 50.5 in the over-under department. So it's going to be a lot of points here. All right, we're going to go to the tight end position, and Gerald Everett is now back in the conversation. All right, there's a big in and out split with Donald Parham and Gerald Everett. If Parham is in, then Everett sees a bump down in usage. If Parham's out, then Gerald Everett becomes more of a factor, and especially if there's no Keenan Allen, the 1-2 punch there is going to be Everett, it's going to be Mike Williams, it's going to be Austin Eckler. That's going to be the main 3 guys in this Chargers offense. So he has some upside this week at that tight end position at his salary of $4,000. In Seattle, for the tight end position, it's a toss-up between Noah Fant and Will Dissly. The guy that has more upside is clearly Noah Fant. He's more explosive, and he's been coming on as of late in week 5 and week 6, 3 for 49 and 6 for 45. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Noah Fant get in the end zone and have a big breakout game and probably soon enough really become that number 1 tight end, all right? Especially if they sent him away and went with Albert O, but Albert O is not even the number 1 tight end no more. He might be traded soon because they have Greg Dulcich. So Noah Fant at 3,100 is a like. And that will be the main stacks we're going to focus on. It's going to be Atlanta versus Cincinnati, Detroit, Dallas, KC, San Francisco, Seattle, Chargers, and Houston, Las Vegas. And don't forget about Cleveland and Baltimore. All right, let's move over to the values. The values before we head out, guys, we're going to start out with that quarterback position. These are guys we can pair with in our stacks. Matt Ryan, if this will be a sneaky snack here, if you want to create a stack with the Indianapolis Colts here, I would start off with Matt Ryan as one of my favorite cheaper quarterbacks at 5,400 against the Tennessee Titans, who are a poor secondary. We're seeing a bump in this no huddle here with Matt Ryan. This is the reason why I like him in this particular game. We saw 30 fantasy points against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have been a very good defense. But once they went to that no huddle offense, everything became easier for the Indianapolis Colts. So I love a game stack of the Colts, pairing him with Michael Pittman, pairing him with Alec Pierce as well. So 5,400, Matt Ryan is a love. And another quarterback we can stack this week would be Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is going to be against the Washington Commanders. Poor secondary. This is another scenario here where we can possibly see a breakout game from Aaron Rodgers. He has yet to have over 20 fantasy points. This is a perfect game environment for Aaron Rodgers to get things going and to pair him with Alan Lazard and Romeo dubs. So I like Aaron Rodgers at 6,000 and Matt Ryan at 5,400. Some of the running backs we can look towards. If you want to talk about higher price guys, we got Saquon Barkley here in a great matchup against Jacksonville Jaguars. They are bottom 5 in the league against stopping the run. We got Jonathan Taylor back in this Tennessee game. Definitely go back to the well at him if you want to pay up at running back at 8,100. A cheaper option, a little bit cheaper at 7,700, is going to be Leonard Fournette against Carolina. This team has totally given up on both sides of the ball. And Leonard Fournette is getting high usage, as you can see. 35 against Atlanta, 22 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, seeing 15 to 20 rushing attempts, and he's seeing over 5 receptions almost each and every game. Love Leonard Fournette at 7,700. And if you want someone cheaper than that, we can go to Breece Hall. This man is a matchup nightmare. It doesn't matter if he's going up against a good defense in Denver. He's going to see high usage, and he's getting the ball creatively. Michael Ford, offensive coordinator for the New York Jets, has been outstanding drawing up plays for Breece Hall, and he has 3 games in a row with a touchdown. So at 6,200, I like Breece Hall. All right, let's move over to the wide receivers. And I already spoke about pairing up Matt Ryan with Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman. We can also look towards Alan Lazard, who I spoke about at 6,100. Make sure you keep him in the pool. Wan'Dale Robinson is now the number 1 wide receiver in the offense of the New York Giants. And pretty much one of the most healthy. He's finally healthy now, so he's getting an opportunity. He saw limited snaps last week. We're going to see a ramp up in snaps this week. So this should be another breakout game for Wan'Dale Robinson. Saw 12 fantasy points in limited work in week 6. Things are going to take another level up for Wan'Dale Robinson against Jacksonville Jaguars, working in that slot. Definitely has some high explosive ability, and they're going to creatively give him the ball under Brian Daboll. All right. And then Nico Collins, don't forget about him at 4,200 as well. So those are going to be the value plays at wide receiver. Let's move over to tight end before we head out. We have a revenge narrative for Evan Ingram on Jacksonville side. I'm liking what I see out of him the past 2 weeks. 6 of 10 for 69 against Houston, and against Indianapolis Colts, 5 for 6 for 40. This is a Doug Peterson offense, okay? They're going to throw to the tight end, all right? Doug Peterson was with the Philadelphia Eagles, and we know how much they use the tight end there. Things are rolling over to Jacksonville, and Evan Ingram is turning up this particular year. After that big rookie year, Evan Ingram, possibly the new change of scenery here in Jacksonville. He can definitely, hopefully, turn around his career here. And at 3,300, he's a punt tight end I would look towards. All right. Other than Evan Ingram, I like Robert Tonyan here to complete the stack for Green Bay. If you don't want to go Alan Lazard or Romeo Doubs, we saw a nice bump in usage for Robert Tonyan. The last past 4 weeks, 9 fantasy points against Tampa Bay, 10 against the New England Patriots. We saw okay usage against the Giants, and then we saw a big bump up against the Jets, 10 for 12 targets and 90 yards. Definitely need him to get in the end zone, but at 4,500, another guy we can look towards in our game stacks. All right, so thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you're following me on Instagram and Twitter at MeshNetJSD, and I'll be back with another video very soon. All right, peace out, guys.